It's a beautiful day. Okay, actually it's night. But it's a great time to learn Adobe Premiere Pro even if you've never touched a nonlinear editing program ever before in your life. By the end of this video, you're going to be able to cut something, add music, add sound effects, add a title, export it, and show your friends that you know how to edit. Let's dive in. All right, the first thing we need to do is open up Premiere, click on the icon, and wait. With a faster computer, it'll load faster. When you first open up Premiere, it's going to ask you to either open up a prior project or create a new project. Let's go ahead and create a new project, and we'll call it, just click on New, Cut with Premiere. Click OK. It'll open up the last window layout that you had. This is pretty much what the default window layout looks like. You can do whatever you want with these windows. For me personally, I like to have my levels monitor, this thing right here, I like that to be right about, let me grab you, click near the top here, grab it like you mean it, put it here, and it creates levels here. This will show me the audio levels. It's obviously too fat, so you can just click on one of these blue lines and just drag it up. So it's kind of how you like it. So you can move these windows any way you want. And there's a lot more windows, but you don't need to worry about them. What you see right in front of you is pretty much everything you need to get started cutting. Now let's talk about the windows real quickly. This is the project window here on the left. In the project window is where all your media is stored. And when you double click in here or choose File, Import, you can import media into it. This is the source window here. The source window is where you can see the media. You double click on media that's in the project and it shows up in the source. So you can look at it and choose the parts that you like. There are other tabs behind here which we'll get to later. The program monitor is where your program appears, where your edited, your cut sequence is able to be viewed, and a physical representation of the different layers of video and audio appear down here in the timeline. That's going to be more apparent as we cut. Here in the middle, in between the source window and the program window, are the tools, the various tools that we'll use. And here are the levels. And you'll see these levels ticking up when you're playing music. So let's first start by importing some media. You can do that by, again, double clicking here in the project window or choosing File, Import. You navigate to where your media is stored. On my computer, on my Mac, I keep my media on my local drive. It's an SSD drive. It's an SSD drive, so it's fast. You want to have a fast drive. Your internal drive is generally going to be faster than an external drive, especially if it's a flash drive or an SSD drive. So I click on Movies, I click on Vlog Elements, and I put the footage I'm going to be using for this project in something called Shoot Prep. And I can either import an individual clip or I can import an entire folder. So I click on the folder, choose Import. It shows up here after importing. And I also have a little bit of music, one track that I chose, and music I choose to keep in the music folder. And I've got licensed music that I can legitimately use in YouTube videos and Facebook videos. And I just chose a folder that I named here in Epidemic called Shoot Music. I just put one track in there. Now I'm going to import some sound effects. I'll double click again in the project window and I will click on Music, Shoot Sound Effects. So there's a few sound effects I pulled for this particular project. And one thing that's really critical is that you organize your media on the Finder level before you bring it in here, just so things stay organized and consistent. So you always know where to find your video, your music, and your sound effects. And you want to keep your project window organized as well in these folders. These folders in your project window are called bins, and they're named for the bins that they hung film strips in, or actual strips of film. When they, back in the days before it went all digital, they use film. And some people still do. So let's create a new bin for our cuts. When I was working in the entertainment industry, I kept my project window super organized. I had cuts, I had a music folder, I had a sound effects folder, I had a folder with my other sources, my video sources I just called sources. And then there's junk that Premiere creates that you'll never need to get to again, but you don't want it cluttering up your project window here. So I always created a bin that I called Z Junk. So when I sort this alphabetically, junk goes to the bottom. There's nothing in it yet, but you'll see that eventually something will. So the first thing we do is we open up our sources bin by clicking here. You can also double click it and it opens up in its own window if you want to see everything at once. If you have multiple monitors like I do, you can move things over, or you can even click and drag it up here and put it as another tab so you can go back and forth. I generally don't do that, but just so you know, you can do that. So I'll close that panel, and we'll just go ahead and click and open our sources. There's not too many, so it's not going to be too hard. Now the first thing you want to do is create a sequence to appear down here in your timeline. To do that, you click on one of your video clips, and there's a lot of ways to do it, but one way to do it, the easiest way, is just click and drag it to this icon right here in the bottom of your project window and let go, and bam, it creates a sequence. Now, you want to edit this thing. So the sequence is made, so I'm just going to delete it out of there. I already have a sequence. You can see that I have all these tracks here above this middle line are for video. These tracks below are for audio, and you can create a whole bunch of them, more than you'll ever need. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this so I can edit it and choose the piece of media that I want to use in this project. But notice that it created a sequence here. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this just by clicking and dragging it into my cuts folder so I can find it. And notice what it did. It named it the same thing as the source media, Shoot Prep 1. So what I'm going to do is just click on it and rename it Premiere Cut. All right, let's go ahead and start editing by double-clicking on the first video clip. Now to play the video clip, you simply click the play button here. But what you really want to do is learn to use the keystrokes. And the most important keystrokes you're going to find in most nonlinear editing programs are J, K, and L. J lets you play backwards. But you can't see me hitting it. K is to stop. And L is to go forward. So J backwards, K stop, L go forwards. And if you want to go more quickly, you can scrub by moving the playhead indicator forward or backwards. And you can also go fast by hitting J repeatedly. Hit it once, hit it again, and it goes faster and faster. It goes 2, 4, 8 times normal speed. I happen to know that I had 3 bad takes, so I'll just go to the beginning of the good take. Now you want to choose where you want this to start. So once you've found where you want it to start, like here I want to kind of swish pan into it. So I want to start right there. There's a couple of ways I can do that. I can click this icon here in the bottom left to mark an endpoint, or I can hit the I on my keyboard. Now I'll hit it physically here so you can see that I set an endpoint, but I never do that in real life. I always use I to mark an endpoint, and at the end when you're done talking, let's see.
Let's get ready.
You either hit this icon to mark an out point or type the letter O. Bam. Now to get this footage down into the timeline, there are several ways to do it. The easiest way is perhaps to simply drag it down here into the timeline. But look, when I dragged it down, look what happened. I got the video, but down here there's no audio. And the reason is we don't have the source indicator checked for audio. So I'm going to go ahead and check that. I'm going to delete this and do it a different way. Another way to bring it down there is to simply click and drag it and move it over here for the different kinds of edits. Really, we're just going to worry about the overwrite edit right now. Just click, let go, bam, we've got the first chunk of video. We can see it play down here, and we can see it playing up here. Let's look at our next piece of video. Do the same thing, double click. Here I'm just showing my digital audio recorder and my phantom power for my microphone that I use when I'm on location. So let's just choose a piece of that we want. Okay, let's choose maybe right before it comes on. And what we do, we mark an endpoint there, right before it comes on. And when something happens, click, mark an out point. Maybe that's all we want for that. I don't need the audio for that, so I'm just going to look here in the bottom left down here. I'm going to just click on that icon and turn it off. So the audio won't go down here when I drag it over into the program monitor. So I click and drag, do another overwrite edit. Now notice how I've got all this timeline that I'm not using. I like to see everything I'm working on. At the bottom of the timeline, you can click and drag this baby so you can see what's going on. Now let's choose our third piece of media. Okay, here I'm going to show my Sennheiser 416 mic. And let's choose a really nice endpoint for that. Say maybe right here so you don't see the ugly closet in the background. And what am I doing? Remember, I'm hitting L to go forward and obviously we have to stop it before that. So I'm going to hit J to go backwards. And I can just toggle back and forth until I find exactly what I want. And I'll choose that chunk to put in my timeline. And I will simply click and drag it over here to overwrite. And notice this piece of video here on the left does not have any audio with it. That's because it's a time lapse. I shot a time lapse on my iPhone, and it just shows me getting junk ready. And dude, I look so fat in this thing. It's horrible. Let's just choose a little bit of it. Fat and bald. Horrible. Let's go. Just before I take the tripod out of here, let's try. Okay, that's the end. And let's just choose a little bit here. And let's just choose that little chunk there, 5 seconds long. Now, one thing I like to do an intro, and then I like to do a time lapse with some titles over it, and the titles will hide how bad I look. So let's talk about that. If I wanted to take this piece of video that I just dragged to my timeline and put it right after me speaking, there's a couple ways I could do that, but the easiest way is probably just to right-click on it and hit Command X on a Mac. I think it's Control X on a PC. So it makes it go away. I position my playhead right here, and I want to get to this edit point right there. And so your up arrow, up and down arrows will take you in between edit points. So I'll put my playhead where I want the media to go. Then I'll hit Shift Command V or Shift Control V on a PC, and it will just insert that piece of media right after me talking and before these other two pieces. And you'll see when we're done with this cut why I want it here. Even though sequentially it may not be ideal, but it's fine. All right, so let's choose our next piece of video. Shoot prep 5. Okay, just dropping in the drone. So I'll go bam. And I don't really need the audio for that. And closing the flap. Bam. So remember, mark in, mark out. Mark in with an I, mark out with an O. Overwrite. And let's look at our last piece of video for this little short thing. And this is me setting up the trunk to open up and look cool. So don't need any of that stuff. It's me getting all this stuff out. Oh, where did it go? Come on, baby. Where's darkness? There we go. I want to... Okay, here. I want to open the trunk. So I'm going to start right here before the trunk opens. Use that little chunk there. And choose me throwing some stuff in there. I'll just choose little pieces of this just for fun. Throw that in. And it's fine. That's boring. Fun. Remember, it's I to mark an endpoint. Hit L to go forward. And hit O to mark an out point. And you want to have your in point and out point be interesting. You don't want to just have it linger like, oh, just sitting there doing nothing. You want action. I come from the movie trailer, TV spot world where you got to tell a story in 15 or 30 seconds. So I like things to move really fast. My producer always said, Trevor, slow down, take time to tell a story. I still like things to move fast. So maybe that chunk there. And I don't care what I say. Throw the drone in. And the trunk closing is all we want. And sometimes the computer doesn't cooperate. Okay. And, dude, I look horrible. And close the trunk. Bam. Maybe that's the end. All right? Now, I really can't edit until I get my music in here. And I chose a song that I've used once before, at least once before. So let's look at our music. When you double click on the music, you see the waveforms here in the source monitor. And if you want to see them a little better, you can actually slide this over and get a better view of them. That's all we're working on right now are the waveforms. And you want to really start when them, by the way, how did I zoom in? You zoom in and out with this thing. You can also use a keystroke. I've mapped my keys so that F3 is moving in, or F3 is zooming in, and F1 is zooming out. And mapping your keys is a whole different ball game. Different video I'll make for you if you're interested. F1, F3. If you don't map your keyboard, you can just go like this. Just click this little slider down here. See these sliders? Just click and drag. So here we go. I put it at the very beginning of the music. You can see the music. Eventually you'll learn to kind of read music just by looking at waveforms. And you just want a little bit of it in your timeline. So I'll just choose a little section, drag this over here, mark out. And I want the music to start right after I'm done talking. So I'm going to position my playhead where I want the music to go. I'm going to choose the source indicator and move it to the track I want it to go onto. This is on track A2. Now notice it says A1. This is only one track of audio, one stereo track of audio. That's why it shows only A1. If there were more tracks, you would see more source indicators here. And we want A1 to go to A2 down here. And so I just simply click this button, overwrite, or I can drag, see the little waveform right here? I can click and drag that into overwrite, and bam, it adds the music. And it looks like this.
Mark McKenzie, let's get ready.
All right, so the music's gonna start there, and okay, here's something we wanna do. I want my music and my shot change to happen at the same time. So I'm going to select all of these clips just by clicking and dragging over all of them and slide it here so that when I'm done talking, the music immediately kicks in and the next shot starts.
Our favorite trust attorney, Mark McKenzie. Let's get ready.
And notice we're getting a little more advanced, but I like to cut to the beat. I mean, when I'm doing movie trailers, TV spots, the music really needs to drive the cut. And you can see that if you expand the waveforms. If you hold down the Option key and just hit your scroll wheel, you can make these tracks bigger or smaller. So I'm making just this track bigger by hitting the Option or the Alt key on a PC and hit my scroll wheel. And I want this next cut to happen right on the beat. And you can see it. Oh, there's the big hit. So I'm just going to drag this shot to the left a little bit until it lines up with that one. And notice we got another shot here on another downbeat. Now it's like, I need a little more footage. Well, all I need to do is click on this edit point, and when I click and I see that the cursor is red and has arrows facing both directions, that's called a roll edit. I will just simply click and drag. Now, if it's not red, if it's yellow and it has an arrow facing one direction or the other, it's going to allow you to do an insert edit. It's going to slide everything, so move everything down. And because I had a space there when I started, I'll just create that space again. I want to fill that space, so I want the roll tool. I'll drag it to the left. Now here's another trick I'm going to teach you that I use all the time in the real world. So when the shots are, these are just kind of B-roll-y kind of shots, so they're not too critical. So it's, the start and stop is important, but we can make this happen really easily. We can easily go to this edit point by clicking on this edit point and then simply typing the letter E, and the edit point will adjust to wherever the playhead was. Now notice that I just hit Command Z to undo it. I had the playhead right at this downbeat. Have this highlighted, type the letter E, and it'll extend this clip and it'll shorten this clip to adjust so it hits. So look at this so far. All right, and so it sounds like, and so I'm going to go ahead and finish this edit really fast. We'll fast forward this, and then we'll talk about ending the music. All right, so we got the sequence kind of roughed out. Let's talk about ending the music. An easy way to end the music is to simply fade it out, which is kind of boring, and we pretty much never do that in the real world, except for maybe just a couple frames. So an easy way to fade music out is by using the pen tool. You go up to your tool palette up here, you click on the pen tool, and this line here in the waveforms is your audio. So you can click and create edit points or keyframes, and you can adjust the levels in between them. If I click on this keyframe and drag it down, it's going to make the levels just fade out slowly over this period of time. Okay, so that's the cheap way to get out of it. So let's hit Command Z and undo that. the better way to get out of that is to find a great place in the music track to end. And it's not necessarily the end of the song. Let's listen here. Not an end. More like a beginning. And sometimes it is the end of the song. So we could have used that. Could have used that, but let's go ahead and just use the end. And this is another art, it just takes a little bit of practice. Listen to music, listen to where the beats are, listen to how, if you know music at all, this will be a lot easier for you. If you don't, you'll figure it out in time. But listen and try to match things. And we could hear that it was going dun dun. So let's hear where it's going dun dun down here. And that was kind of the dun dun. So remember the trick? Position the playhead where you want the edit to go. Click on the edit point and type the letter. What letter was it? Letter E on the keyboard. And bam, the track adjusts. The edit point adjusts. And here I have it approximately where I think it'll sound okay. So I don't want it to go on this track. I want to be able to move it around a little bit and see. So I'm going to go ahead and put the source indicator on track 1. I'm going to hit overwrite edit here. This is another way to do it. Remember, we could hit overwrite edit, which I made it have shown you. It looks like that. Or I could drag it over here to overwrite, or I could simply drag it to the timeline. There's 3 ways to do exactly the same thing. Let's go ahead and be consistent because I was showing you this way before. You don't need to know all 3 ways. Just each way works just the same. All right, now let's see how that sounds. Because it's a little rough. One thing you can do is open up this other track here, drag this out, and look at the beats. Zoom in on the timeline. Remember, I mapped my keyboard so that F1 is zoom out and F3 is zoom in. Or you can use the little thingamabob at the bottom to zoom in and out. And now we can see these beats. Like, oh, they're close to lined up. You can see how you got a big beat here and a big beat here. And we go like that. Move it a couple ticks over. And adjust this edit. Let's see how that sounds. Yeah, I don't love it. I'm going to back it up a little bit and see if stuff lines up. We can start it sooner. Let's see. This is one of the... Okay, so it's to the beat, but there's so much more musically happening in this track than in this one. It's so much louder that it's kind of jarring. So one trick is just to kind of fade it in. And again, you can take your pen tool, drag this beast down, and fade it in and see if that sounds better. And let's go ahead and maybe fade this one out, make a little bit less of it, have it fade out so they're not fighting so much. Let's try this.
Mark McKenzie, let's get ready.
All right, so not the greatest cut in the world. This is just to teach you the principles. And at the end of this, because we're not going to go, if we drag this all the way out, it rings out forever. Too long and boring. Maybe, maybe not. One thing you could do is simply, I didn't show you how to do that yet, did I? One thing you could simply do is fade it out here. So I grab the pen tool again by clicking up here, or you want to be fast, you got to use all the keystrokes. I use all the keystrokes. P is for pen tool, and we can just simply fade that thing down. All right, so now we've got the cut pretty much roughed out. By the way, I got this dead space in the front. I don't want that dead space. oh, I'm clicking with the pen tool and it works, even though it's not the correct tool, but the pen tool still works. Just type the delete key, bam, and then it closes that space. And here, okay, look at that. I got this swish pan, but there's no sound effect. Let's go ahead and add a sound effect. I got a few sound effects here I pulled. I like this one, grind by. I'm just gonna simply click it. Well, let's look at it here. Here's what it sounds like. Kind of sounds like a swish pan, right? So let's put it here. And maybe move it over just a little bit. No, let's move it back a little bit.
Just got back from the gym. Negative.
All right, so we got a sound effect there, and let's add another sound effect somewhere else. Okay, I don't use a ton of transitions. In the editing world, you know, we use them some, but just so I can show you how, we're gonna go ahead and put a push slide in here. How do you add a transition? You simply go to your effects, and in the default layout, effects are right here. And if you wanna find a specific one, you can simply type in the word push to find a push slide. So we'll drag the push slide, simply drag it to the cut, bam. And to adjust it, you can double click on it. That'll allow you to adjust the transition. It went to 12 frames, which looks probably a little too long. Let's go 8 frames. You can also click on it, and in the effects controls, you can modify other things. And in our case, we don't want to mess with it too much. This is kind of another lesson, but just know that you can modify transitions up here. And to see what that looks like, we simply move our playhead before it, hit play. And that looks kind of horrible. It's too slow. Let's go 6 frames, and let's see if that's any better. A little better, and let's go ahead and add a sound effect to go with that. Let's add a little swish. Remember, choose the portion of the sound that you want to use. So I'll just simply, I'm familiar with these swishes, I know what they are, but let's listen to them real quick. I like the second one, so I'm just going to put my playhead in the beginning, mark an I, put it at the end, mark an O, and we're going to just drag it underneath here, kind of position it, and let's see how this works. And it's kind of dumb, but notice how the swish is not lined up with the downbeat. So let's just kind of line up with the downbeat. It'll sound a little better. Yeah, see, a lot better. Okay, our cut is almost done. The one thing we're lacking is a title. So to create a title, I prefer using the legacy title tool as opposed to this thing here. You can create titles with this type tool. I like the legacy thing better. And the way you get to the legacy title tool is by hitting Command T or by choosing File, New, Legacy Title. It opens up this new title window where you can name your title. I never bother. The title is going to go whatever you happen to have open here in the project window. I'll hit OK, and there it is, Title 3. The playhead was here over this shot, so that's where you're going to see the title to start. You're kind of going to work with. Now you just click where you want to create your title once you have the correct tool selected. Now notice over here on the right, it opened up some of these windows. We have legacy title tools. We want to click on the letter T, so we have the type tool. We just click in the middle and start typing just life. And the font's ugly, so let's choose a different font. You go here to the top left, choose the font that you like. I happen to like Railway, which is a free font you can download from Adobe. Choose black to make it nice and thick. And if you want this to be bigger and centered, well, first you hit this center alignment icon. And then to make it bigger, right here where you see a small t and a large T and a 100, you want it a lot bigger. So you just physically click on that 100 and drag to the right. And it'll get much, much bigger. And then you want to go ahead and center it. So you need to have the right tool to center it. If I click now while I have the text tool selected, it's going to create more text. What I want to do is move this thing, so I'm going to click on the arrow tool, and I will move this thing to where I want it. And these lines around here, just for your information, This is an action safe line. So if you have any important action in a 1920 by 1080 HD movie, you should have it inside that outside line. And this inside line is for title safe. And since this is going to be for YouTube, I don't care if it's title safe. I'm just going to let it take up as much of the screen as I can. And notice how there's this huge space in between here. I don't like that much space. So I'm going to go to Title Properties, and I'm going to change the leading so that these words are closer together. And I can actually center these things by using these legacy title actions. If I click on this, and you can't see it, there you go. Drag that beast down. I can see center. I can have it centered top to bottom and left to right. Now it's exactly dead center. And it happens to be title safe almost exactly as well. Now once I'm done with that, I'm like, what do I do with it? Well, you just close it. See here in the top left? Like anything on a Mac, similar on a PC, you just click that little red X. It closes. And like, whoa, where did it go? It's not my timeline. What do I do? Well, it's over here. It was one called Title 3. I just click and I physically drag it where I want to put it. And I like editing to the beat, so let's choose where it goes.
Let's get ready.
So I want it to land right here on that first big downbeat. And notice that here's the next downbeat. I'm just going to drag it to there. And it looks like this. And for some reason, Adobe defaults to an off-white. It's probably, safe for TV or something. But I like it to be white. In order to change it to white, you click on Legacy Title Properties over here. And where it says Color, you click here. And you see, oh, look at it. It's kind of gray. I want it white. It's YouTube. Blast it. So now it's white. And also, it's too small. I want it bigger still. So I'm just going to click and drag it until it's much bigger. And I'm going to grab my little arrow tool again by clicking on the Legacy Title Tools. Click on the arrow. Move it up. Let's just fill that whole thing up, man. Forget rules. Who cares if it goes over? I don't care. Bam. There we go. I like it like that. We're going to go ahead and center it again by hitting Legacy Title Actions. Hit center. Bam. Perfectly centered. Close it. It's already there. That looks a lot better, right? So here we go.
Let's get ready.
All right. And I'll teach you one more thing. What if you want to fade it out at the end? A couple ways to do that, but let's do the easy way. You can just right-click on the last frame and choose Apply Default Transition, which happens to be a cross dissolve. And it's cross dissolving from this fat dude into black because notice there's nothing after it. And it looks like this. And I closed the trunk, so it was black anyway. So, nothing really actually happens. But you sometimes want to end things with a cross dissolve. Bam, and there's our whole cut, which is almost 24 seconds long. Let's watch it. Oh, this is a cool trick. You're like, oh, I only have one monitor. I mean, I've got 3 going on, but sometimes you only have one monitor. I edit on my laptop on a plane sometimes. What do? Well, to see this whole thing big, you simply click the window you want to get big, and you hit the tilde key in the top left of your keyboard, and it makes that window big. If you hit Control tilde, it'll give you no border, so it looks like that. So let's go ahead and go to the beginning of our cut and see what it looks like. Well, now, what happens if I hit Control tilde now? We get that. But if I just hit tilde, if I click on the timeline and hit tilde, it gives me a big old timeline. But if I hit Control tilde, no matter where I am, it's going to make the program window big. Watch this. Control tilde, program window big. Let's watch it.
Just got back from the gym. Now get ready for a video shoot with our favorite trust attorney, Mark McKenzie. Let's get ready.
Bam, you're done. All you have left to do now is export this so you can upload it to the YouTubes. Make sure you have your timeline selected by clicking in it. See this little blue line around it? That means it's selected. You want that to be selected? Choose File, Export, Media. This big scary window opens up. Don't worry about it. Even though I've been doing this for many, many years, I just keep it really simple. Generally, I'm uploading to YouTube, so I choose the format as H.264. By default, it was selected because that's what I used last time. For the preset, I choose YouTube 1080p HD. It's down here towards the bottom. I've done some 4K stuff. It's pretty much not necessary. Most people are going to watch YouTube videos on a phone, so you don't need 4K. I mean, it's fun. There's a bunch of stuff you can do with it, but 1080p is going to be adequate for almost everything. Choose the name. Call it Premiere Cut 1. Click on it to decide where it goes. We're going to put it in JHC Finished. Hit Save and hit Export. And that thing is going to export. When it's all done, you're going to have a cut that's ready to go. Now, one thing I beg you to do is not mess with perfection. Perfection is the enemy of progress. Just make your cut, make it pretty good, and upload it. Then get on to your next one and your next one. I mean, even this thing, I wanted to redo the whole thing because I think it's way too long. Should have been half as long. But I think there's a lot of valuable information in here, so I'm going to leave it as it is and get on to my next project. So forget perfection. Just do over and over and over again, and you're going to get better. Have a great one. If you like this video, hit like, comment, and subscribe. I'd be super grateful. And let me know what else you'd like to learn about. I'd love to share it with you. Now, go make something great.